Take you half an hour to get it.
What, you gonna work on it?
And then, is that good?
Yeah, that worked, Mr. Cole. I bet you did.
Oh, on the TV.
Oh.
Hey, look at that chubby guy going down the steps.
First of all,
delay.
is it a delay?
Yeah.
Oh, that's real funny.
So as long as,
Well, the gym.
He says, oh, I'm going to the gym.
They say there's a card. That's what they say.
so then that way, if you let an F-bomb roll, they can,
They can bleep it.
yeah, they can bleep it. Does anybody want to do my hair? Plenty of seats. Plenty of seats available. StubHub and SeatGeek and. So Bob and Mariana, because I'll have the directors coming up and giving like brief reports. They'll come right here, right beside me. Okay. Yeah, that's what I'll do. Because like Allison's going to talk for about 15 minutes, and then no, I'm just joking. And
I am a woman of few words.
this is like a taping of the Tonight Show. You know, you have the audience here, but you know we're broadcasting out. You know, so I need to bring out some entertainment prior.
You should contract JR.
Well,
This is the first I've done this. I don't have my volume on my computer.
here I'll test it. Yes, if you want to test it.
It looks good here.
You can test it over there, so. Okay.
Testing. 1, 2, 3. How long is the delay?
You can hear them.
Here, I'll test it. Yes, if you want to test it.
Wow, that's long.
That is a long.
That's good. And that way, you know.
It's like a 35-second delay before we hear them speak.
Welcome. Great to see you here today. All right.
That's good, Mary. Now,
How long is the delay? That's good. And that way, you know.
it's like an opportunity to relive a moment in my life. Like
Yeah, you're right.
if I missed the conversation with you right now.
Where do you want me to sit?
If you want to sit there, you'll be out of camera view.
Okay.
And then when I call you over, just come on over here. And then that way.
Just so you know what I'm going to say, because I want to surprise you. I'm going to let them know that we're transitioning. Many of you may not know Charlene's here. She was formerly the specialist. You know, she's with me since June. We're still working on transitioning and realigning job duties. And we're working closely with the business office on that. And then I'll tell them that we are very, we're paying very close attention to how well Source for Teachers is performing. And that I met with them regularly, and now Dr. Conway has joined me. In fact, we're scheduling with them tomorrow. We're in a 3-year contract. This is the last year of the contract, so we are monitoring their performance relative to filling positions. And then I'm going to tell them about the clearance memo they got in February.
May as well just sit here then.
Then I'm going to tell them that we're going to send them something on an email blast tomorrow.
Okay.
And I'll just give them a little rundown on that, and then that'll be it.
Perfect. All right.
Let me sit here.
Yeah, you want to relive our moment together?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Hey. Good to see you. You know.
Is that TP? How you doing?
Your sidebars have a great video. Oh my gosh.
Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Today's meeting is sponsored by Wendy's. The 4 for $4 meal is still available through December 31st. See how that looks. See, you should never. If you get me in front of a camera or a microphone, watch out.
You're jamming right now.
Yeah. We probably ought to have some type of title screen up until actual.
You are live right now.
Yeah, I know.
You turn your mic off?
Oh yeah, there. I could, yeah. Yeah, if it's orange, it should be paused. Okay. Oh, Christy just emailed me and said, I'm live. That's great. Yeah. It's not IBM and it's not Walt Disney World Quarterly Meeting. This is Raw. Westmoreland IU Raw. So on today's meeting, everyone, I want you to then vote. How many pounds does the camera add? Well, I'm mic'd off. I think. Lighter. In person. Okay, that's good. I'll take that. Followers, you sign up for the feed, so then you'll get, anytime there's something going on, you'll get an email saying, hey, yeah, so a viewer is just anyone that watches, yeah. Should have a contest, send in via today's meeting the craziest thing you're watching this meeting. Yeah, that would be kind of fun. when I did this in my district last year, I had people working out while they were doing this, while they were watching. Kind of cool. Hey, welcome. Good to see you. Welcome, guys. Thanks for coming today. Great to see that you're here. 1 minute warning, 1 minute warning to cyberspace and those who are in attendance. Live.
Just going to raise another question, right? And 3, 2. Daddy and Daddy.
Oh, there goes Lynn. There goes Lynn up there.
You're live on camera.
There you go. Yeah, you walked when you walked up. It was. Yeah. You missed it though. You can't. Yes.
You're live.
Oh, I don't want to be.
We ready to roll? No, you don't. No, I don't think Jim wants to be in the picture. Yeah, I want to come over a little bit this way. Okay. You guys ready to roll? Okay. All right. Hey, well, welcome everyone. This is the first quarterly meeting of the Westmoreland Intermediate Unit quarterly meeting, and thanks so much for everyone coming. And a lot of different topics to share. I want people to kind of treat this as kind of an update of the organization. This was not called for any emergency. This is just how we're going to be doing business over the next couple of years, as long as hopefully I'm here. That, every quarter, I think it's important for the employees of the organization to kind of hear from its leader, where we're at, where we're going, and anything that needs to be kind of reiterated to the organization and so on. We have a packed house here. For those who are watching on the internet, all but 3 seats are taken in the auditorium here. I appreciate you attending either physically or virtually. There are ways in which to participate in the meeting if you have questions. If you're physically here, you're more than welcome to ask questions as we go along. Also, for those who are watching via the internet, you can use the link of todaysmeeting.com that I sent out into the email, and we're monitoring the back channel. If you want to send in a question that you would like me to answer, be more than happy to do that. Just please note that everything that you do type in there is seen by everybody to the world. So, if you're going to say hello to somebody specific, just know that everybody in the world will see that you said hello to everyone on that there. This isn't, I will apologize, this isn't IBM, nor is it Walt Disney World's quarterly meetings with vast productions and people in movie theaters watching this. It's pretty raw, but maybe over time we'll get to a point where we can become a little more creative with this. First and foremost, I wanted to share my gratitude on behalf of the board to all of the veterans who have served and worked for the organization. Today is a very special day and should be celebrated by you and your family. So on behalf of the organization, I personally thank you for your service if you've served in the military at all. I did have the fortunate opportunity yesterday to observe the program at Clairview, which was absolutely moving and incredible. And so the students and the faculty, all those who were involved in that, again, thank you very much for that. It was definitely a moving experience. One of the things that came to light was, where are we going as an organization? And I thought, maybe it is a good idea to kind of review just briefly, what was presented in service and constantly keep it out in front of us as an organization of where we're going. We've had a lot of changes over the last 3 months, but all of the changes point to specific goals that we have in mind. So let me just briefly share with you, what those 3 goals are. And that first goal that we presented in service is we are going to operate as a premier leading experts providing student, curriculum, technology, infrastructure, human resource, and financial services. So we want to become the leading experts. We want districts to come to us for the expertise in those different areas. So that's a goal that we are shooting towards. And so that means that not only do we have to take an inventory of where we're at with our own expertise in those areas, but also then look for opportunities to grow people to become experts, no matter what level of the organization that you serve. Remember I said in service, we all have a role. and I expect you to play that role as the best of your ability as possible. So that's goal number one. Goal number two, I challenge the organization to operate as a state-level player when it comes to state-level initiatives. I want people within this Commonwealth to look to IU7 as state-level players when it comes to those areas that I just mentioned. We have some examples to share throughout the division reports about how we are doing that and getting recognized. One that I'll share, that because Mr. Vaughn is traveling right now, is that we're going to be launching a statewide product over the next 2 weeks that is going to help districts track clearances through Act 126 and other application type processes. And so we're going to be selling this service statewide. And we had a very successful presentation last week, and we already have people calling in wanting to be part of that. That's the kind of thing that I'm looking at. You know, how can we increase our visibility and our products and services, because it's only going to help our districts in our geographical footprint that'll benefit from, you know, those successes there. The third goal, okay, so the first goal is being experts, second goal, being state-level players, and the third goal is to operate as a purposeful enterprise, entrepreneurial enterprise for educational opportunities. And so we first have to get our house in order to be able to do that. So we have been, over the last 3 months, 4 months, analyzing the processes that we use in terms of providing services, looking at existing contracts, looking at examples of where we didn't have contracts that we should have contracts in, really getting our business house in order. And led by, you know, Mrs. Willis and her team, you know, we are becoming more purposeful in the decisions that we're making when it comes to finances. And that's going to benefit everybody in the organization if we get our house in order to be able to make good decisions when it comes to that. I'm going to share a little more about that as I go through, you know, my piece of today's meeting. Also at In Service, I kind of laid out a plan, and that was, we have 9 standards that we're going to hold each other accountable. Those standards including being a leader, being an expert, partnership, collaboration, innovation, efficiency, accountability, communication, and professionalism. And I labeled them as the standards of organizational excellence. And it is these standards in which we're going to hold ourselves accountable. This year, what we are going to be doing is really defining, what does it mean to be an expert? What does it mean to be a collaborator, a partner? And then through the divisions, begin to filter out that information and then begin building a culture around those standards. Now, there's 9 of them. My goal is to get it down to 7, since we're IU7, the 7 standards of IU7. Kind of get it there, right? So we're working, and I'm going to talk a little more about that here in a second, to kind of decrease that down to 7. And so you're going to start seeing these standards being part of how we do things in here, and how we organize things as well. So I wanted to share that again, because I think it's important for people to, again, know where we're going and where we're heading, and what the expectations are. Now, as part of the first few months that I've been on staff here, I've looked at the organization and how to structure it. And so I want to review this for everyone, so everyone has a clear understanding. We have 5 divisions in the organization, okay? We have human resources as a division. We have financial services as a division. We have curriculum as a division. We have now what we call technology and infrastructure division. And last but not least, we have student services division. Student services by far is the largest division that we have. It's approximately 75 to 80% of the entire organization. But each of those divisions have division leaders in that. And so for curriculum, it's Tim Hamill. For HR, it's Mr. Somerville. For technology and infrastructure, it's Mr. Vaughn. For student services, it's Dr. Monroe. And for financial services, it's Mrs. Willis. So we have 5 division leaders, okay? And it's myself and the 5 division leaders that I call the cabinets. All right, so the cabinet is a group that meets once a week, every Monday, painstakingly from 9 to 12, not always ends at 12, it sometimes ends at 2, very rarely, but it does. But our goal is to look at the organization and ensure, are we making decisions reaching towards the mission? Those 3 goals that we mentioned. What can we do to improve the awareness and acceptance of the standards of excellence? So this is a group that gets together and is pretty close-knit, as a result. Now, over time, in September, I expanded then the leadership and created what's called the administrative team. And the administrative team consists of about 25 people. It would be the 5 cabinet and approximately 20 other Act 93 employees. To qualify to be part of the administrative team, you are one who supervises other employees or leads statewide initiatives. And that's kind of the criteria to be part of that Act 93 group. To be part of the administrative team. And so our first meeting was in September, and the goal of that team is to begin living and breathing the mission and the standards of excellence. And so we talk about what's going on in the organization in terms of updates for myself and the division leaders, and then we begin our work looking at the standards of excellence. And so last month when we were together, we looked at 3 of these standards and began to look at what are the criteria for being proficient in those different standards. And we are then going to be working through the other 6 and then combining them into 7, hopefully the 7 standards of IU 7. And then that then kicks off then the development of an evaluation system that we're going to be using here at this IU around the 7 standards of excellence. So beginning in the school year 16-17, can you believe it's 16-17 next year already, the way in which we're evaluated as an employee of the organization are going to be through these 7 standards. But having an evaluation system based on where can I improve as an employee. So in other words, you don't get dinged for identifying a needs improvement, because we want you to set goals, create action plans to improve in that particular area. Now, much more information will come out about that, but I at least wanted the organization to know that our goal is to then identify these 7 standards, create criteria, and begin to hold ourselves accountable for being proficient in those 7 standards. So it's definitely a work in progress. And as you ask folks of the administrative team, it's painstaking, but it's what needs to be done. And it becomes the basis of what we do as we move forward. Okay, so enough about the structure of the organization. I do want to address a little bit about, and in service I produced a link that we would have a cultural survey. And we had 180 responses to the survey. And not bad, considering an organization close to 500 people, that you have close to 20% response rate. Normal response rates are, in the single digits or low teens, and the fact that we had about 180. Now, I'm not sure if Lynn Weir completed 700 of the, I'm just kidding you. She got the free ticket in the front row here, so, but, it's not a scientific a survey, but what came loud and clear out of that survey was that this intermediate unit does not communicate well with its employees. Therefore, having a quarterly meeting. Therefore, some of the other things that you may have been seeing, more communication coming from the administrative team, the cabinet, and this quarterly meeting is one of those examples. We heard loud and clear through the survey that there is a morale problem. All right. I haven't been in an organization where there hasn't been a morale problem. Okay. However, if we have a majority of people saying there's a morale problem, then we have a morale problem. And I think the actions of this administrative team over the past 3 to 4 months, sticking to the rules of policy and contracts, hopefully is beginning to set the foundation for kind of a rebirth of this intermediate unit to be trusting of its leadership, to know that things that we are hearing is the truth and on point, and not part of rumor, not part of gossip, because we're going to be straightforward with attacking the problems that we have. And I appreciate the candor that people showed and wrote into the survey. So you need to know that your voices have been heard, and hopefully you're seeing the actions that we're taking to address that. One of the areas, as a result of the survey, was a concept of a weekly report. And so the board wants to be communicated with on a more consistent basis. And so we produce a weekly report to the board, giving them an update, from my perspective, and then as well as from the division perspectives. What the division leaders then do is they then ask their division folks to then submit information so then they can share it with the board. So do not hesitate to share great things that are going on in your division with your division leaders, because it may just end up on our cabinet weekly report that goes to the board. It's impossible to share all the great things that go on in a board meeting, and so every week, if I can feed them a little more of all the great things that we're doing, it's going to help improve the image of the IU to the board members, and then inherently through the superintendents as well. So don't hesitate to send that type of information to your division leaders. Also, as a result of the survey, it felt as though that people didn't know what was going on internally. Like, well, why is this happening? Why is that happening? So in an effort to improve communication within the IU as well as to the public, you'll notice that if you go to the school board section of the website, it'll take you right to the agenda of the school board meetings prior to the board meetings actually happen. So by end of business Friday, you will always have access. It's public access to the board agenda, so you can kind of see what's going on and what's going to be voted upon, because then that gives people the opportunity to come to board meetings if they want to speak out on any of the issues that are listed there. So I just wanted to share, again, that's another example of the power of that survey, and again, results of that. So again, thank you for doing that. Over the last few months, we've had a lot of not labor agreements, but a lot of things that have happened, I think, to right the ship on many different issues on many different sides. So I'm very happy to report to the organization that we do have a support staff contract agreement that should be going to print any day now. Okay. Also, we have a revised Act 93 compensation plan with the board. So there have been a lot of talks in terms of working conditions and agreements and plans and so on. Also, as a result, or since August in service, we've had a lot of different staff changes. And so I wanted to kind of highlight a few of those for you. We have a new front desk receptionist here at the IU building. That's Jen Biss, the new voice of the IU when you call in. We have a new student services secretary, and that's Sherry Miller, serving in that. We do have a new early intervention secretary, Joanne Moss. And we also have a new position that was created, known as a payroll secretary position, and kind of goes back to goal number 3 that I mentioned earlier, because we have districts that are very interested in purchasing services, business services, financial services from us. So we saw an opportunity to create a position, as we eliminated other positions, and I'll explain that here in a second, to better address district needs. So we have a new payroll secretary, and that's Jenny Moore, who's serving into that position. So we're hoping that that's going to assist in generating revenue for the organization that then can be, I guess, to the benefit of our districts and our kiddos here. We did eliminate 2 positions since August, the first being the event planner position that was formerly held by Jen Biss, who is now our front desk receptionist, as well as we eliminated a position within the HR division, the Human Resources Secretary. And so the Human Resource Division has 2 employees, Mr. Somerville and Mrs. Anthony. And so one of the reasons for that is we want HR to become more specific to HR, customer service oriented, and then begin to branch out to the districts and providing services there. One of the things that we did with HR is we also, since August, have moved the custodial as well as the maintenance staff now report to the Technology and Infrastructure Services Division under Mr. Vaughn. What that does for the organization, it provides very clear lines of what is human resources versus other services that we offer, and it kind of cocoons HR way it should, and it doesn't get involved in the other aspects of the organizations from, supervising custodians and so on. It really belongs, as a separate division, with that. So it's really important, again, to kind of reiterate, and I've reiterated this with the cabinet, I've reiterated this with the administrative team, but this concept of chain of command. Everyone has an opportunity to share things that are of concern or of things that should be celebrated, and always share that with your immediate supervisor. And if you can't resolve it, then you go to that immediate supervisor's supervisor, and you just continue to go up the chain of command. And it's okay to disagree with your immediate supervisor. Just politely say, I disagree, and I'm going to take this to the next level. And I hopefully have trained the administrative team and the cabinet to be respectful of those rights of employees to then send it up the chain of command. I think over the last 4 months, that has been not a hurdle, but something to get used to. And finally, I think it's starting to sink in organization-wide in terms of following that chain of command. It's unfair for someone to jump over their immediate supervisor and go to a director without the knowledge of the immediate supervisor, because you kind of don't give them a chance to resolve it. So I've been preaching that quite a bit, and I'm very happy to report that I'm starting to see improvements with that. So I do appreciate the efforts that you are making with that. Okay, going on to another topic. Let me just pause here for a second. Doesn't look like we have any questions so far on our back channel. So there may be another back channel where you're talking about it, but use the official one if you're going to pose questions there. All right. One of the things that we're doing since we've met in August is I had the goal of maximizing access to services by districts. Just as I surveyed employees, I also surveyed the districts, their superintendents, their board members, and one of the complaints was people aren't here after 3 o'clock. We call in and no one's here. And so after looking at, what the work schedules are, who's where, and so on, my goal was to maximize access to for the districts for our services. And so we've made a few revisions to start times, expectations of work week length, and I'm very happy to say that now from 8 to 4 p.m. we are covered in terms of having districts be able to access our services. And so I appreciate some of those who were affected by this. I understand that may have placed some hardship temporarily of changing things around, but in the eyes of the district, they are very happy to see that we are now open from 8 to 4. Again, that improves this perception of the IU that we're attempting to turn around. Let's see here. State budget. Probably have been reading the paper, maybe not, maybe you're on Twitter following everyone about the budget impasse. We still do not have a budget, and Mrs. Willis is going to talk briefly about what that means for us as an intermediate unit. What I wanted to share district, IU-wide, is that we're not affected as districts are. However, indirectly we are. Currently, there appears to be an agreement pending between the Republicans and the Democrats and the governor. What's not good about that is the fact that there is a Senate Bill 909 that would remove the ability of school districts to tax without holding referendum votes on any tax increase. Right now, we have what is known as Act 1. Senate Bill 909 removes any of the provisions of Act 1 to raise taxes without a referendum. So if Senate Bill 909 passes, then every single school board in this Commonwealth, anytime that they would raise even a single penny of taxes, would have to go to the voters for a vote. And coming from the state of Delaware, living and breathing referendums, seeing New York and New Jersey and their struggles with referendums, logical people don't vote to increase their own taxes. They just don't. And with an aging population in the Commonwealth, the likelihood of elderly people voting for taxes increases who are on fixed incomes that very rarely get adjustments to their incomes, very less likely that they're going to be voting for any type of referendum. So I have strongly spoken out against the referendum. I have contacted legislative elected officials, and so have other superintendents and so on. But that's something you need to be aware of. So if people ask you, hey, it doesn't impact the IU directly because we don't have the ability to tax. We just collect dues from districts, and when they pay for service, that's how we bring in revenue. But if districts have to have referendums and they're not getting passed, then that's less money they're going to be able to want to then purchase our services or the ability to contribute to the general operating budget. So it is definitely an issue that, we as an organization need to be aware of. And, when you're questioned out in the public, you have some knowledge, of that. And if anybody has any questions, you can always refer them to me, and I'd be happy to share that with you. So the state budget, Mrs. Willis will talk a little more about that during her update here in a second. Let's talk a little bit about Clairview and the building purchase. As I came on, one of the first tasks I was given was to look at the purchase of Clairview, how that's going to work, who's going to be involved, and so on and so forth. And so it's a very delicate issue, as you all know from last spring, and most hope that it would go away, but unfortunately we are on a time crunch because we only have so much time to purchase the building at a certain given cost. And so the only way in which to purchase that building is going to be through the support of the school districts. So we are continuing to pursue the purchase of Clairview. We are right now asking the districts to have discussions with their boards on what are the questions that you need answered to go ahead before you would purchase one share of the building. So we have 17 districts. We would have 17 shares that somebody could purchase, and a share equals $294,000. All right, take that times 17, it's approximately 4.4 million, no, 5 million. 5 million with the extra money, the $600,000 being set aside for capital improvements with that. So right now, districts are having preliminary discussions on what questions do they need answered. I gave the superintendents that homework assignment. Those questions are due to me November 30th, and then Mrs. Willis and I will then begin to answer those questions for the superintendents, which then will produce another period of what other questions do you have? And we're asking the districts to give us a yes or no on whether they'll purchase one share by middle of March. What's going to happen, there are going to be districts that are going to say, we're not interested. So what we'll do then mid-March is work with only those that said, yes, we'll purchase at least one share, and then we'll continue the process with them March and thereafter. So we're not going to have any resolution to it in mid-March, but at least we're going to know who wants to be involved. We do have districts that are interested in buying more than one share. Some were very interested last year, but may not be interested this year. So we have to kind of go through that process. One thing that I do know, and we can squelch any rumors that are involved in this, is the board has rejected any notion of moving this building into Clairview. That will not be happening. And they chose not to fund a feasibility study that would have cost them about $4,000 and decided, no, we're not going to try to squeeze this building into there. It would just be a nightmare to do that, and the board agreed. So we don't have to worry about that notion with that. All right. Am I missing anything with Clairview? Okay. All right. So let's see here. Also, boy, it's a lot of stuff, but a lot's happened over the last 3 months, so I do apologize. I also wanted to share that we have started discussions with each of the districts that host IU teacher-led classrooms. We have about 6 districts and then 2 other type of arrangements. And what I want people to realize is that we're not getting out of the business of special ed. That is not the intention whatsoever of this. The reason we're having these discussions with the districts is so they pay what they get, or they get what they pay for, and we get paid for what we do. Unfortunately, over time, there has been a creep of providing services and we not charging the appropriate price for the services. So over time, you can see that we have a work deficit. Okay, that somebody that used to be in a district for 3 days now is only in there paid for a day and a half, but still goes there 3 days. We have to somehow account for that day and a half somewhere. And we could be using that day and a half somewhere else to generate revenue to support opportunities for kids, goal 3, right, for that. So we met with superintendents last week, and we shared with them that we are planning to increase costs to match actually the services that they're going to be getting. I have not had any responses from any of the superintendents of their intent to take back classrooms. And so there may be some that do that, but we haven't had any indication of that. They have to analyze what the cost of taking back classrooms would be versus simply paying a higher price to the IU. And I think with confidence I can say that we're still going to be cheaper as compared to what it would take them to take classrooms back. But we owe it to the organization to explore these things, because if not, it only gets worse over time. And so they were appreciative of that conversation, and I want to squelch any rumors that the IU is giving back classrooms. That is not the case whatsoever. The districts need to choose whether or not they're going to be willing to pay the higher prices. And again, I think with confidence I can say we're still going to be cheaper than if they were to take classrooms back with that. Okay, did I miss anything there? All right, very good. Well, I'm almost done, I promise. I'm almost done here. Summer hours. Here's another big change that's coming to, at least some consistency. And Mr. Somerville and I talked a lot about how do summer hours work. And when I came in, it was like people were working here, there, everywhere, and there was no consistency, right? And so as part of the negotiations with the support staff, we threw in the idea of what is known as Power Wednesdays. And so beginning February 24th, and information will be forthcoming in an email from me to you. Starting February 24th, we're going to start the concept known as Power Wednesdays. And this really affects support staff. This affects those who are stationed here at the intermediate unit, not so much for those teachers in classrooms at districts. This is IU administrative employees and things like that. But the concept of Power Wednesdays is we have 8 weeks in the summer in which we're going to have a summer schedule. And that summer schedule is going to be normal work hours Monday through Thursday, and then on Friday, we're done after 4 hours. Okay? You work half day on Fridays. And that's going to be 8 Fridays. So I need to find 32 hours of work to make up for saying you have Friday afternoon off. So you take those 32 hours and divide it in half, that's 16. So for the 16 Wednesdays before summer hours, and for the 16 hours after summer hours, each Wednesday we're adding an hour of work. Okay, so like the first Power Wednesday is, I think, February 24th, and I'm going to send a schedule out so you can really schedule way out if you'd like. And then the back end of this would be November 30th would be the last Power Wednesday. And then we go back to normal work hours until we pick Wednesdays back up again. But one of the things about Power Wednesdays is simply not doing the same old for another hour. What we want to do is utilize that extra hour to begin to implement professional learning communities in this organization. And so my vision with this would be that every other Wednesday you would be going to a professional learning community that would be something that you would be interested in learning more about, and surrounding around those 7 standards when we get to that. And then every other Wednesday will probably be division-specific activities. So that gives the division leaders time with their staff to do team building activities or things that need to be in service upon, for that. So, I promised the support union that we would not simply use that hour as another hour of work, but really to use that hour on Wednesdays for educational opportunities. We as an organization have to model that we're a learning community for others to be able to take hold in our district. So, more will come out with that, and I'll share with you the full schedule, with Power Wednesdays for summer hours, okay? So we're not going to have people working odd hours. We're all going to be working together and working as one with that. Okay. Next thing, you can mark your calendars because our first in-service day next year is going to be on Monday, August 15th. Okay, so that's going to be the first day, so that might be the earliest you ever heard of when you had an in-service day. I don't know about you, but I like to plan my Disney trip around when I have to go to work, right? Right, Kathy? Right? So hopefully that assists you in your planning and your vacations and so on to be August 15th. And I'm very happy to share, and I didn't even get a chance to share this with Justine yet, but we are going to have a very special guest speaker, a kiddo, not a kiddo anymore, an adult, Adam Blank is going to be our special speaker on August 15th. So we're really looking forward to that. And then there's going to be activities that are going to be centered on the 7 standards. So you can see that's kind of where we're heading already for August 15th, 2016. Okay. Next to the last thing I want to share here, we do have some IU Foundation events that are coming up. That I would encourage, if you have the time, to either attend or donate your time. Tomorrow night we have the Champion for the Arts at the Latrobe Arts Center. That starts at 6 o'clock. Ceremony starts at 7, and that's my understanding is a wonderful event. On Saturday we have the Penn's Tailgate fundraiser at Rizzo's, and volunteers are still needed. And so if you're interested in volunteering, please contact Luann Murtha many times to let her know that you'd be more than willing to donate your time. They need people to, sell, tickets and just collect money. And, if you're interested, and I understand it's a great time to celebrate, Pittsburgh sports as well as good food and drinks at Rizzo's. Last thing I have to share is more of a somber note. I wanted to recognize that we did recently have a passing of an employee, Roma Kocknauer, who was an early intervention nurse that was at Roughdale Elementary for years. And we wanted to recognize that her service here. The board will be having a moment of silence at the next board meeting in honor of Roma. And I know that the staff at Roughdale have tough emotions to deal with, and anytime you lose, a friend and a fellow employee, and so, this is another kind of opportunity to share that, we do have an employee assistance program that if you see somebody that's struggling, with Roma's passing or any other type of issue, that's what those services are for, you and your family. And Mr. Somerville will be more than happy to provide more information, with that. But we wanted to make sure that we recognize the passing of Roma, and please, keep her, Roma, her family, and fellow employees in your thoughts and prayers as you move on. Our next quarterly meeting is going to be Wednesday, February 17th, unless I get an overwhelming, don't ever do this again. And I haven't seen anything officially come across the back channel, so that's good. I'm not sure if every time I talk I will have this much information, but I thought there was a lot of information that needed to be passed on. Before I conclude the meeting, I am going to pass it to my fellow directors and give up any updates. So, Marianne, do you mind shifting the camera over to focus on Jim? There you go. All right, there you go. You're on.
I'm on. Thank you, Dr. Conway. I just wanted to thank everybody for sticking around and participating in the quarterly meeting. I'm really excited about an opportunity to communicate some things out from the Human Resources Division to the staff. And I just have 3 things that I'd like to share with you today. One of the things we've been going through lately, since Dr. Conway got here, is transition. He mentioned that I am down to 1 staff member in Human Resources, but we have also realigned duties within the organization so that we can work as a more pristine Human Resources department and not have to be involved managing other staff members who are now reporting to other divisions. So I really look forward to this because I think it's going to create some efficiencies in my office, and I think it's an exciting time for Human Resources. I also wanted to let folks here know that Charlene Anthony, who was formerly the Special Ed Director's confidential secretary, is now working with me in Human Resources, and that's a new thing for Charlene. She's working hard every day to grow into her position and learn all the tasks that are demanded of her, and I'm working with her, as are other folks in the administration and the staff here at the administration building, to support Charlene in her new role. 2 other things that I would like to share with you is approximately 2.5 years ago, the intermediate unit contracted with a company called Source for Teachers in Mission 1 to provide substitute services in classrooms, and we have been monitoring their effectiveness. We are in the 3rd year of a 3-year agreement with Source for Teachers in Mission 1. I don't think it's a secret that their fill rates as of late have not been acceptable. I can assure you that I have met with their administration regularly, expressing our concerns and how not having adequate fill rates impacts not only us from a cost standpoint, but how we utilize our staff, and as importantly, how well we can provide services to our school districts and to the students that we serve in the classroom. In fact, Dr. Conway has joined me in these meetings recently, and we have another one scheduled for tomorrow. The president and CEO of Source for Teachers will be here, and so we have been able to reach their top level person, and we fully intend to communicate where we think we are in our relationship with Source for Teachers. Dr. Conway also has made it very clear to them that if we don't see things begin to trend in a more positive way, that we will look other places for our substitute services. The last thing that I would like to share with you is about clearances. Back in February, you should have received a letter from me that told you that Act 153 was adopted by the Pennsylvania legislature and signed into law by former Governor Tom Corbett. It is the Child Protective Services Law. This requires people in public education to have 3 clearances: the state police clearance, the child abuse clearance, and the FBI clearance, which also requires fingerprinting. We have been collecting clearances from staff since February and building them on a spreadsheet so we know who owes clearances and who is current with their clearances. I'm here to remind you today to go back and review the information that was shared with you to make sure that you get your clearances in and that they are current. Tomorrow you should be receiving an email blast from me, or from my office I should say, to remind you on how to go about applying for your clearances if you still need to do that. In addition, if you're not sure what clearances we may have on file for you, please call the office and ask for either Charlene and I. We'll be glad to assist you and let you know what clearances that we currently have on file for you. It's very important that you comply with this law because failure to do so could jeopardize your ability to continue working in public education until this requirement is fulfilled. I don't have a whole lot more to say. I know Dr. Conway wanted the other.
You had a 3-minute limit, right?
I had a 3-minute limit.
Yeah, so you're at 2:59. So great job, Jim.
Thank you. That's the first time I've ever met the limits.
All right. So can we still go down? We'll go down to Dr. Monroe. Is there anything that you would like to add for the student services?
3 minutes, I got 30 seconds, that's what I was told, so I'm just gonna put this out real quick. Over the summer, the Pennsylvania Department of Education changed their requirements and their application process for an alternative education and disruptive youth program, which is our Crossroads program. I'm happy to say we have been approved through PDE. It's a 2-year approval process, so we are good until 2017 for our AEDY program at Crossroads. The other thing goes to one of the goals that Dr. Conway has, and that is next Tuesday, Brandy Binikonski and I will be attending the PAIU Day on the Hill, and we have scheduled to talk to legislators regarding early intervention and early intervention funding. Along with that, it is my understanding that the executive directors of all of the IUs across the state have specifically requested that Brandy Binikonski be the person to talk to the large group of legislators that we are having that morning. So that program, including Brandy, is definitely on the road to fulfilling one of the requirements of Dr. Conway as far as being a state leader in the early intervention program, which also speaks to everyone in that program, the supervisors, the teachers, the classroom assistants, to keep that program running and doing such a great job in servicing our students in the county.
All right, great job. All right, and last but not least, before I conclude, we have an update from financial services, and so.
Hello, everyone. I'll be quick because I know, you guys have been here and patient, and we appreciate you staying for this. I have just a quick update on the state budget. As Dr. Conway said earlier, the budget impasse affects the IU slightly different than a school district. We are monitoring the situation very closely. A major portion of our operations is funded directly by our member school districts. So at this time, our member districts are still paying us for the services that we are providing them. I know a lot of districts, and I can't speak for how many in our county, but I just got back from an IU, my state conference with the PAIU business officials, and many school districts as well as intermediate units are applying for what is called a revenue anticipation note. We have successfully sought board approval and have secured that note in the amount of $9.4 million. And that's kind of our safety net in this situation in case our districts would get into a position where they cannot pay us for their services and we're fronting the cost of that payroll. At this time, we've only had to take a small draw on that revenue anticipation note because we have reached out in some other areas. We have taken an upfront request of our access money for our early intervention program. And typically, we don't request that funding until the end of the year, until we know actually what we need. We usually spend our state funding in EI. And so what we have done is we've requested $1 million, which is our required draw for the early intervention program. So we have that has been approved and we've received that. So we're using that for cash flow purposes. But again, it's a situation that we're monitoring very closely, and we'll keep you updated, and we hope that this situation is resolved very, very soon. The only other thing I have is I do want to give a shout out to the finance department team. And I told the group, I had a division meeting this morning, and I did tell them that I was going to do this. There has been an astronomical amount of change and transition, and a lot of the people that Dr. Conway mentioned earlier in his presentation is in the finance department. And they're critical to the operations. One of the people that I want to mention also in the transition is Kathy Roberts. She is a new team member to the Access program. So for teachers in our programs, early intervention, in our school age program, in our school districts, you'll be seeing Kathy new to the program. The team has been great. They have really embraced the message that Dr. Conway has been given on, keeping the communication open and reaching out and helping other people through their transition. And I know, I think I speak for the IU as a whole and the other divisions and the other departments. You guys are all doing that. And we appreciate it. It makes it easier. The transition takes a lot of time and a lot of patience by everybody, and adding frustration to it doesn't make it easier for anybody else. So thank you not only to the finance team, but to everybody in the organization who has been touched in some way, shape, or form by all the movement. And, we appreciate your patience as we move forward. That's all I have.
Keep the microphone there just 1 second. So there are many districts that have talked about drastic measures that they need to take because of a budget not being in place. We as an organization really don't have to look at drastic type of actions until a budget impasse reaches approximately February. Would that be correct?
That would be correct.
Okay, so we come down the pipe, thank you, I'll take that back. So if we come down the pipe, December, we get into January, and then there's still not a budget, that's when, in February, is maybe we need to kind of take some, a little more drastic measures, in terms of our operations. I'm hearing that they want something done by Thanksgiving. And so all indications appear to go that way, but it's very fragile, and it's kind of hour to hour, things are changing and so on. Well, thank you so much for attending. I hope you found today's session valuable. I know that you took your own time to be here, so I appreciate that. I know some of you have been watching, working out on your treadmills. Maybe you're waiting to pick up your kids from school, and I'm HD stereo in your car right now. I even had someone say, you know what, I'm going to get a glass of wine this evening and watch it tonight before I go to bed. And so you may watch us from any different places, but any time that you've spent, watching and listening, hopefully you found a value. As we get into the next one in February, if there are things that you would like me to talk about, do not hesitate to email and say, could you give an update on this? I didn't get a chance to do that so much this time just because we didn't know how this was going to work, and again, it's in its infancy, but I'd welcome questions beforehand that you want me to address, and so on. But before I close out, are there any questions from anybody that's physically here in this room that is packed except for 2 seats? Okay. All right, please go ahead.
What are we supposed to do when we're not provided with a teacher in our classroom?
Okay, so what are you supposed to do when you're not supplied with a teacher in your classroom?
Right, when our regular teacher is out and we need a substitute, what are we supposed to do if we did not do so?
So first, let me understand, where are you located?
Kiski Upper Elementary.
Okay, Kiski Upper Elementary. And so what happened last year when a teacher didn't show?
I wasn't there last
Okay, where were you last year?
year.
At Clairview, okay. And so what is the procedure now that you've been told?
Well, Kiski's trying to provide us with their substitutes
Mm-hmm.
in our classroom as they're needed, or as they're available.
Right.
to us. Which, one day last week, I did have, 1 or 2 of their teachers, their substitutes,
Mm-hmm.
help me out.
Mm-hmm.
My-
Well, first let me say this. I think that speaks to the lack of ability of our current contractor to fill classrooms with substitute teachers. And I have been very firm in saying, if you don't improve, I'm looking elsewhere. That doesn't solve your problem for tomorrow if all of a sudden no one shows up. So,
When I'm left for several periods without a teacher altogether, and I am
so what have you been doing?
doing it myself. Following her lesson plans and doing it myself.
Okay. Have you reported this up to your direct supervisor?
Yes.
Okay, and what's your, and,
They have been emailed that the teacher was going to be off sick or is off sick.
mm-hmm,
And then turned around and emailed that it was not a self-provided. I went through our principal out there, and he has graciously tried to provide me with their substitute.
mm-hmm. Yeah, would you like to address that, Mr. Somerville? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Somerville.
Hi, Jackie. Thanks for bringing that up to us. We're aware that we have a problem providing substitutes. Not that it makes it any easier for us, but it's an epidemic across the state. It's not just an IU problem. It's not just a Westmoreland County problem. One of the things that we've done recently is Mr. Coder, who is the assistant superintendent at Kiski area, has been combing through their sub list to see if there are teachers that would sub in our classrooms, and we've been able to get about 3 or 4 that are willing to do that now. And I think what you witnessed the other day was the fruits of his labor neighbor. He's working very closely with Jeff Haidt, who is the district manager for Source for Teachers here. We don't believe there's a magic bullet to solving this problem, and what Mr. Coder has been doing with my office and with Mr. Haidt's office is just one thing we're trying to do to increase the number of people in the sub-pool so we can minimize the situation that you've had to deal with.
Yeah, and I want you to know too, I mean, we do recognize there is an issue, and talking with other execs across the state, they're having the exact same experience, and so much so that it is beginning to get legislative attention in terms of there was just recent testimony about the lack of substitute teachers that are available to that. So, you know, if I had the answer, you know, I would have provided that to everyone, you know, of my colleagues across the state. It's not fair for me to say that we're going to have to deal with whatever we can to get through this until we have enough substitutes there. But I think it's important that you let your union representation know anytime there's an incident, you know what I'm saying, a time in which this is happening, because then the union leadership needs to be sharing that with us. Because we have monthly meetings with each of the associations, and so that has to be a constant. In fact, tomorrow's meeting, we actually have Source for Teachers coming to the professional staff the last 15 minutes of that, because I want Source for Teachers to hear what my union is experiencing because of not having enough substitutes. So, you know, we are doing what we can to get the attention of people to get. But unfortunately, we don't have the pool of people ourselves as an intermediate unit. You know what I mean?
What would you recommend that I do when I come into that situation again?
I think exactly what you did before. You got to notify. I mean, you got to work with the district and what resources do they have available. Ultimately, if it's a district sub or if it's a Source for Teacher sub, the district pays for it no matter. So, you know, there has to be a solution that, you know, at the building level, you know, not being there when that happens, you know, as a building principal, what are they doing with their staff to have coverage and things like that? I mean, if you feel as though that the consistency of this is becoming a union issue, then I highly encourage you to work through your union leadership to formulate a stance as a union and bring that to our attention in a formal manner. You know what I mean? I mean, I appreciate you sharing that. I don't know what the impact is across the IU. I have a guess, but, you know, the only way that people are going to recognize if there's unity in numbers with that. So, and hopefully I'm not skirting the issue. Minus me just simply coming out and being the teacher for you. I don't know what the solution is at this point until we can get people who we pay to do this to get the people that they need to get. And you got to know I'm pushing. I'm pushing them and I'm pressuring them to get what we need so you're not in that situation. But to answer your question, if you're in that situation, then you work with that. You work with your immediate supervisor, all right, who should be working with the building level supervisor to figure out what's going to happen. Okay? So, and I don't like hearing that you have to deal with that. That is unfair to you, and mostly it's unfair to the kids, because that's who's suffering. Anytime there is a substitute in a classroom, there is a lesser academic what am I saying? When you have a substitute in a classroom, you're not getting the same experience as the normal. So that's a problem. And also we have to analyze, why are teachers calling off sick? Why is this an epidemic? What is not going on that we don't have perfect attendance? Now, I'm not expecting perfect attendance. People go on conferences and they get sick, but you know, teacher absenteeism is a problem in some school systems, and so we have to get to the root of the problem. Why are people calling off, kind of thing? But yeah, and again, I'm not saying, yeah, please don't take that. Don't go back and say, Dr. Conway said, don't be sick. I'm not saying that whatsoever. But I think that's a great question, and thanks for bringing it to everyone's attention, because it's an organizational issue, not just, you know, your issue. So. Great question. All right, let me just see. Maybe that sparked some questions from the outside. No. Did anybody else have any good questions that you would like for me to address at this time? All right. Well, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the format, and maybe we'll see you back here in February. Happy Thanksgiving, and take care and enjoy your family. And as the great Ron Burgundy once said, you stay classy, WIU. So, see you later. Oh, we have a question.
It's a silly question.
Sure.
Anyways, I send my clearances all in the summertime. I clearance for interoffice mail. How do I know, make sure that you got it and it got filed, so I don't get to it at the last minute?
You walk with me back to my office, and I'll give you an answer.
Okay.
Okay?
Now that's customer service. All right, peace out. Take care.